This, this is Eric, and this is the special interest podcast, or live stream on YouTube. You might be looking at it right now. Probably it is Saturday, April 26th. So probably I kind of just hit me that, oh yeah, we're like 2 days from the election here in Canada. So probably uh, find something to talk about there, and otherwise I'll probably just be scrolling for a bit there. So, discussing film, Sinners is estimated to earn a phenomenal $42 million domestically this weekend, a 10% drop, which would be the smallest box office drop for a major movie in modern history. I find like this movie. I haven't seen this movie yet. It's a horror movie, so like I'm not sure if I will see it in theaters. I just get kind of um, I even like I have an irrational fear of nightmares, so particularly watching something like that at night, and this makes me sound bad. Um, but yeah, I probably won't see it in theaters. But I keep hearing people talk about it so much. I might, but I found so much of the discourse around this online just kind of hilarious and insane. So it's directed by, and I believe written by Ryan. It's a vampire movie. Written by, directed by Ryan Coogler, who also did the Creed movies and Black Panther. What's a bunch of stuff. It looks really good. It stars Michael B. Jordan. It also has Haley Steinfeld and some other people that I've seen in other things. And it's a movie you wouldn't necessarily expect it to do that, to be like this huge success, right? First of all, it's a vampire movie. Those don't necessarily make that much money most of the time, unless you're like Twilight. It's also R-rated. It's also, I believe, has sexual content, it's so much about also like racial politics, is my understanding. Um, so like you would kind of assume, okay, that's good. And it's also an original film, which if you look at even just this year so far, and over the past many years, right, original films have tended to struggle in favor of like franchise stuff or Marvel movies or whatever IP, recycle that IP kind of stuff. um and when you add all the other things that, okay, this movie would theoretically, even though it's what we've heard for a while, is that like it is fantastic. It's had like 100% or like 99, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, so the aggregate of all the critics for a while, and even like in the critics who were all the critics who did like it, wasn't just like, oh yeah, it was okay, it was pretty good, could have been better, but it was pretty good. No, they were like, this is like the best movie of the year. This is like a masterpiece. It was all these like glowing reviews. And also something that's very interesting about it is that Ryan Coogler actually somehow got this deal, so he gets to keep the rights to it. So I assume, if like Warner Brothers, who's releasing it, they couldn't just like say if Ryan Coogler doesn't want to come back for a second one, or thinks they're not paying him enough, or whatever, they can't just turn around and get a different director and make the sequel, or if they wanted to make like a spin-off or something, right? He has control of it, which uh, they the studio seems to be kind of worried about, and other studios seem worried about. Okay, if this becomes a trend, we can't have creators actually, having control over the stuff that they make for us. We have to be in control. So there have been all of these, as it's come out, and as it's been released, a lot of the trades, websites that cover entertainment, which a lot of people know, and was made particularly obvious during the actors and writers strikes. The trade publications, so like Deadline, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, etc., they're essentially propaganda mouthpieces that work for the studios, right? they are who the big studios go to get information out there or to put out a narrative. And so much of, I think Variety was particularly guilty of this. They had put out some articles that were clearly trying to leave the impression that the movie wasn't doing very well, or it was in risk of, oh, it might not end up being profitable, it might not be this, it might not be a success, because it was, I think it had made in like its opening weekend, it made like $60 million, and it has a $90 million budget. So most people would look at that and say, oh wait, that's a really good opening. That's it's already almost made up its budget. It's doing much better than people would have expected it to, being an R-rated, you know, uh, sexual vampire movie. Um, I hate the way I said that. But like, an R-rated vampire movie, right? It's gonna have it should have a certain limit to the audience that you get. But the article was trying to frame it like, oh, it's in trouble. I'm like, no, it's doing great. And so this again, so it's being uh, um, it's only going to have apparently only going to have a 10% drop in its second weekend, which is which is very good. Because I think, what is it here? It was, yes, the smallest box office drop for a major movie in modern, cinematic history, like modern Hollywood history. And there was another post like that I saw just a short, earlier today, where I think that wasn't for the weekend, but that was for like the whole next week, where it's projected to only have a 23% drop, which would also be really, really great. Because that would, I think that it said would be like the second smallest drop in like modern Hollywood history. But I saw a bunch of people who were clearly like just predisposed to want this movie to fail or whatever, who were framing it as if, oh yeah, people, it's really overrated, and people don't want to see this political stuff or whatever, and not surprised people aren't going to see it. And I'm like, what are you talking, like this means people are going to see it. Less people than saw it when it first came out, but more people than went back to see most other movies that are, proportionally, most other movies that have been released. Like, I feel like some people are, I mean, a lot of people are just really stupid, and they look at the word low and drop and imagine that means it's bad, and not, but like, I guess, maybe don't follow movie box office or whatever, because like that, like usually you would have worse you would have worse drop off. I feel like I've spent too much time on this story. um Tony Gilroy, showrunner of Star Wars Andor, fantastic show, by the way, talking about division among Star Wars fans. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. If you love this thing, then the more variety in it, the better. You can't talk about the Star Wars community. It's not a monolithic thing at all. There's 25 different versions there. Absolutely. Like I and this isn't just a Star Wars thing. I get so annoyed with people in fandoms that they have this idea that, like, I get this with Marvel fans a lot of the time as well, where they're like, no, it has to always be this one very specific thing. And they'll, let's say, with like when She-Hulk came out, which I like, um they would put the image of some like comedic bit they did in the show, or like the image of her twerking with oh, what's her name, the singer, Megan the Stallion, and be like, and show an image from Iron Man. Oh, this is what Marvel used to be, and now it's this, and to try to say, oh, it's fallen so far. It's like, no, like Iron Man was a freaking action, traditional action superhero movie. This is a sitcom. They can both be good in like their own different ways. I feel like I tend to. I would think like I think I like Iron Man better like as an action movie than I like She-Hulk as a sitcom. It's not like a bad sitcom. I feel like it could have used some more work. I really wish it could get a second season. It was one of the only like Marvel shows that really worked like as a TV show. But yeah, the whole like Star Wars is so many different things. And I hate Star Wars fans sometimes. Let's hear. Yeah, it's nothing. Oh, Sebastian.
Hey, chat, Sebastian Stan here. I'm so excited for you to watch today's stream and check out some special clips from Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, which hits theaters May 2nd.
We've not have.
Go get your tickets now, and also make sure to check out the custom Bucky skin, which also
so
drops
little
on May
energy.
2nd. It's so awesome.
Maybe
Streamers today got it early.
I haven't followed like a press tour very much. I saw some clips like of not Yelena, Florence Pugh talking about the movie. So like maybe they've had like a long press tour and he's just been burned out. But he's like, man, he does not seem he seems like he has a gun to his head. Why is this in my feed? I guess Ryan Reynolds, right? Fairly monolithic thread today. Black Panther 3 about to be a full Ryan Coogler movie. No studio notes from Marvel. Yeah. That's like Sinners being such a big hit with Ryan Coogler because they are doing a Black Panther 3 after Secret Wars, and apparently Denzel Washington is going to be in it. And there's also been rumors that they're basically, because T'Challa, after Chadwick Boseman died, they in the movies killed the character of T'Challa as well because they didn't feel like, recasting didn't feel right to them at the time. But now some time has passed, and they're kind of like, yeah, we probably should have recast him. So reportedly, they're gonna, I guess, like use, through Secret Wars, they're gonna introduce a new version of T'Challa or bring T'Challa back to life, with a new actor. But yeah, so that's very clearly in the works, and with he's now with an original R-rated vampire film, right? He's had this massive hit. He's already, I feel like the Black Panther movies were some of the most auteur-driven Marvel movies. Like, there's a lot of Marvel movies where, like, oh yeah, that's just like a studio, like a movie by committee kind of thing. Like, okay, yeah, that's just very much in the Marvel mold, and that's more of like a like think of the Avengers movies. I would think of, right? They're good, but like it's clearly that's not like a Russo brothers, auteur sort of thing. That's more of a Kevin Feige movie than anything else. The Black Panther movies are very much. I mean, they have elements of that too, but they are much more. That's a Ryan Coogler movie, and you're probably gonna have that on steroids with Black Panther 3. Who is that? That's seems familiar. Tati. I don't think I know a Tati. Oh yeah, this freaking Blanchet. Let me just play this. So this is Yves-Francois Blanchet. I've heard people in English say Blanchette or Blanchet. I feel like I've heard people in French say Blanchet. I'm going to say Blanchet. But he's the leader of the Bloc Québécois separatist party.
Yesterday, you said that you were an MP in a foreign parliament.
Yeah.
You are working pretty hard to hold the balance of power of that parliament. Isn't it this the definition
or not part of an artificial country with very little meaning called
my
Canada.
Canada.
Many people in Canada write to me and say, we'd like to have the same as Quebec has. As long as we're part of it and we get elected in this parliament, we are entitled to any right and privilege and opportunity being provided by the persons who vote. And I will relinquish none of them. And if it's a foreign parliament because this nation is not mine. I
But yeah, he's talking about how he feels like a I guess he previously talked about feeling like a foreigner in the Canadian Parliament, like he's the member of a foreign parliament. And then he goes and calls Canada a artificial fake country that he doesn't care about. And I just I fully understand. Yes, the Bloc are Quebec nationalists. They are separatists. They do not want to be part of Canada. Side note, I'm always like very, very annoyed by the way Quebec separatists will often just choose to talk as if they are already an independent country. Like, no, that's something you as individuals, it's not the majority of Quebecers right now, but that's something that you would like to do. But that's not the case right now. So don't talk about, oh, Quebec and Canada. It's like, no, it's one freaking thing, right? You don't want to be part of it, but you are. Canadian and Quebecer are not different nationalities. Quebec is a part of Canada. But anyway, I feel like the Bloc has just been making a bunch of like I'm not a Quebecer. I'm not an expert in Quebec politics or anything. But it feels like they keep making these stupid missteps, like especially here, where he's at a time when Quebecers are more patriotic as Canadians than they've ever been. That they say in polls that they have more emotional connection with Canada than they've had in like the past 30 years or whatever. And I've seen polls where it's like more Quebecers talk about being patriotic to Canada and having an emotional connection, emotional attachment to Canada than Ontarians do. So like at that, in this climate, you're gonna go and talk and just, you could have answered in a different way, right? Essentially unprompted, talk about how Canada is a fake country. I hate it. I have no connection or relationship relationship to it. I'd be happy to, because it's not even saying, hey, Canada's a fine country for English Canadians, but for me, I don't want to be part of it, and because we have a different culture and we think we'll be able to better protect our language or whatever as an independent country, that would be fine. But then just to say, oh yeah, no, Canada's a fake country, and I infer from that, I'd kind of be fine if it didn't exist. That's my inference there. So what's Tula? She is a Quebec, Tula Germanos. It's a free country and he can see what he likes, although I'm confident he feels pretty at ease cashing in his MP salary. Yeah, they got getting those, Canadian Federalist bucks. When Blanchet makes these low blow comments, though, he insults the majority of Quebecers who are quite happy to be part of this artificial country. It's like, I'm sure there are lots of people who I'm sure there are people who aren't necessarily separatists that vote or are comfortable or would consider voting for the Bloc, like lefty. I've heard lots of English Canadians that say like, hey, if the Bloc existed as a party in Ontario, I would vote for them. I've heard people say that. I wouldn't necessarily. I don't think I would say that. Just like their whole hyper secularism thing that kind of goes into like racism and like anti-Muslim attitudes and stuff like that. I feel like would be kind of a deal breaker for me. But I do find them interesting in some, like, would I take them over? I don't know if I would take them over a liberal. Like if the Bloc were a national party, I don't know that I would take them over the liberal. I would take the NDP over them. I don't know if I'd take them over the Liberals. Like, better than the Liberals, I think, in terms of some of their economic policies and their environmental policies are definitely much, much better. But then with the Liberals, at least you have a blanket expectation of, okay, well, they're gonna protect, like, multiculturalism and diversity and the rights of minorities. I don't particularly have that trust with the bloc. I feel like they would be very likely to, like, ban the hijab or some crap like that. Why is Sinners making so much money? The answer: good. I mean, it it does seem to be a good movie. I wouldn't say like that's the only. I feel like there's been a lot of, like, I saw Mickey 17. Mickey 17, great. I was yeah. There's lots of great movies that barely make any money, that just don't do very well for whatever, whether it's, marketing or I don't know, right? There's some secret sauce, I guess. But there's lots of great movies that don't do very well. There's lots of really bad movies that do really well. Name recognition is probably an aspect, or like if it becomes some kind of, like, Minecraft has, for better or worse, become this big, like, sort of cultural moment. Yeah. What's this? Thinking of voting for the Conservative Party. I went to Poilievre's rally in Saskatoon this evening. I wanted to hear him speak, and I had questions. I was there with a friend who said, "Oh, she was wearing a trans rights T-shirt." I think I can see where this is going. As Poilievre was being introduced, a man came up to us and asked us to leave. We asked why. We hadn't done anything. We were there to listen, like everyone else. He said it's private property, and we were trespassing. I said we signed up to be there. I mean, I think I would kind of speculate. I don't know how. I imagine she probably had some more negative questions. Uh, like, I don't like, I think honestly, like, yeah, she's not there to be a supporter per se. Um, but yeah, that's like you should let people come and ask questions. Said it's private property, and we were trespassing. I said we signed up to be there. Said we need to leave. Yeah, so it's because they know you're trans, and they're expecting you're gonna, do something, or some protest or whatever. Oh, we grabbed his arm. Then the cops grabbed her and marched me out. Once we got outside, we were asked if we were being arrested. They said we were trespassing. This was private property. Each of my arms was held by a different cop. I said, if you guys let go of me, I'll leave. They said, you're resisting, and handcuffed me. 4 cops marched me to the street and went through my pockets. They did a very poor job because I did have an ID in my pocket and they did not find it. They said they needed my name. I said no. They said if I didn't give them my name, I'd be arrested. I said I didn't do anything. Can you arrest is a political rally, like, considered private property in that way? Like, she hasn't even done anything. Like maybe you think she's planning to, like, stage a protest or something. Um, but she's just come on. She's signed up like everybody else. She hasn't done anything illegal or whatever. I don't think you can, like, does a political rally count as, like, private property? Or maybe if it was at, like, a company, and this is, like, the company security take them out or something, maybe? Yeah, I said I didn't do anything. They said I was trespassing. I gave them my name and they confirmed my identity in the database. They then uncuffed me and said if I came back to the rally, I'd be arrested. And cops. Oh, is it? Oh, it's from the Revenge of the Sith. Well, it's at the end. Like, I was sort of thinking at first, it's like some of the Minecraft stuff that kind of annoys me. I mean, I thought it's obviously very nerdy. I don't know how I feel like I'd probably just kind of be laughing like, oh, look at that. If they're doing that, like, during the actual movie, like during the, like, fight with Obi-Wan or whatever, I feel like I would be kind of, pissed off. But, hey, it's at the end, it's the credits, like, who cares at that point? We're all just having fun. What's the top 10 anticipated movie? Okay. Mark Carney is running to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. Pierre Poilievre is running to be the first governor of the 51st state. Choices. I've seen this this meme before. I like it. But yeah, Poilievre. Yeah, he's one of many in a long history, in a long tradition of conservatives that just want to be American. Right? Harper, I'd say not in as strong a way, but Harper was very similar, and like he was always clearly trying to change our culture to make it more American, right? Where he was trying to make Canada Day more centered around like the military and all this sort of stuff. He, along with his former chief of staff Corey Tenike, who's actually now with the Doug Ford campaign, they tried to create, and actually did create for a few years, this Canadian version of Fox News, which is called Sun News. Very much this Fox News style right wing opinion news network that was just running cover for the conservatives, and where Harper could go and give a softball interview, and they would go go after certain people. Can I find some stuff? Let me see if I can find some stuff from Sun News. Sun News Network. Looks like I feel like you kind of need to see it.
Watch Sun News Network for the real news. Hard news headlines to keep you informed. Straight talk to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I feel like you get the
just
idea.
The same stories on repeat or the politically correct filter on overdrive. Turn to Sun News.
And this is actually Sun News is actually, if you know Rebel Media, Rebel News, this is where they came from. So like Ezra Levant, this very, very far right, hate-filled, anti-Muslim, all the freaking stuff. A bunch of their people, like Ezra Levant over here, they started on Sun News, and then after it got canceled, they went to, communism isn't cool.
I'm Marissa Semke. Thanks for watching. Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. That's the topic of tonight's byline. Have you ever seen one of those hipsters walking down the street donning one of those iconic Che Guevara t-shirts? You know what I'm talking about. And if you're like me, you wonder, how is it that Che Guevara, this dead Marxist radical, could become a superhero to so many?
Well, he's revolutionary.
Most of these people have no clue who Che Guevara actually was. To them, he's just a brand, an iconic image. I wonder if they knew they were wearing the shirt of a terrorist, a sadistic butcher who got off on torturing people. I wonder if they'd take it off. Now, more recently, I had a similar experience at a restaurant in Toronto called Pravda. Pravda, like the infamous propaganda rag of the Soviet Union that was ironically named Truth. That's what Pravda means in Russian. Plastered all over the walls were tacky portraits of propaganda posters from the Soviet Union.
There we go.
In fact, right when you walk in, there's a 3-piece sort of 10-foot by 10-foot massive poster for of Lenin on the wall. Now, as someone whose grandparents escaped Ukraine in the 1930s under Soviet rule, I was somewhat offended. So naturally, I decided to interview the owner. Tell me about what reception.
I thought this might go somewhere more interesting. It's just whatever. Recall Danielle who? Oh my god! Yeah, of course they were pushing Gamergate. all the anti-Palestinian stuff.
We've talked before about Trinity Western University. It's a small university in BC that has a Christian mission. It teaches secular subjects, and now it plans to open a law school, but it's the kind of place you go if you prefer to live a more modest lifestyle than the bacchanalia that many universities have become, a 4-year adult day camp of booze, sex, drug, and other excesses. Trinity Western offers an alternative for students who don't want to live a culture of libertinism. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say, well, the real bigots are the people prejudiced against Christians. Joke. Yeah, I probably spent enough time on this. Yeah, yeah, that's the one I was thinking about. Yeah, Harper did a bunch of interviews on it. Whatever. What got me started here?
Do you know how I, as a Jewish woman, know that anti-Semitism right now is not equivalent to the anti-Palestinian sentiment that has ripped its way through our institutions? I can go to any academic conference as a PhD student and say, I'm Jewish, in the middle of a talk. I could just announce it. I could just say, I'm a Jewish scholar. And no one's going to tell me to not talk about it. No one's going to assume that it's political. No one's going to assume that it's inappropriate. No one's going to tell me that I'm making the space unsafe for anyone. No one is going to report me to conference organizers and be like, she talked about being Jewish. But Palestinian students are naming that they are Palestinian.
Yeah, where just your ethnicity
and being
is
shushed, being
politicized,
silenced,
that'd
being
be great.
pushed out of institutional spaces, out of educational spaces, being disappeared.
Nobody's going to tell you there's no such
I
thing
can
as
walk
Jewish
down
people.
any street and talk about being Jewish. I can wear my Star of David and be totally fine. I am confident in this. The worst thing that's going to happen to me if I wear my Star of David is that people are going to see me and assume, frankly, that I support genocide and ethnic cleansing, and that's something I'll have to, clarify.
And I mean, one thing one caveat I think I would add. I think that's true for most people in most public spaces, but like there are people who are anti-Semites. There are people who would look at her and just her saying that she's Jewish or having a Star of David and will hate her for being Jewish. Right? A lot of the people on the right, some people on the left, or just apolitical, whatever. Right? There is like it's not like anti-Semitism doesn't exist. I would say like from and there are bomb threats that are not based that are connected to the Israel-Palestine conflict or completely unrelated to it. Like there is still anti-Semitism, but yeah, I would agree that I think like anti-Palestinian racism is much, I'd say, is more prevalent and is much more like way more normalized. Anti-Palestinian racism, and even more broadly, like Islamophobia. Like there is, I think, a much broader understanding that, okay, yeah, anti-Semitism is wrong, it's evil, and we need to fight it. But you will find people in prominent institutions, politicians, who will be openly anti-Palestinian and will take any pro-Palestinian stuff, even if it's not related to the genocide or the war, or specific like Israeli efforts, against Palestinian people, but just, hey, I'm saying I'm a Palestinian, or I'm proud to be a Palestinian, or sharing aspects of Palestinian history and culture, wearing a keffiyeh. That is inherently politicized for so many people.
I am actually a very
And you don't have that to a you don't have that to the same extent in regards to Jewish people, right? Even if I think there's some Jewish people, or not even, beyond Jewish people, right? More Christians often, who will interpret the term Zionist or Zionism as, oh, well, that's a code to secretly refer to all Jewish people. It is not, at least for most people who use it. But like even people who are hostile to Zionists as a whole, that is a much smaller, more fringe group of people, frankly, than the amount of people that will consider just talking about Palestinians as inherently problematic. Or like when in Canada, it was the singer Nemesis, who just won a Juno Award. She, like, last year or the year before that, she was just before her album that she just won for was able to be released, she was dropped by her label. They knew, hey, this is going to be a big album, this is going to be, this could be a big success, but they dropped her for political reasons because she was a Palestinian Canadian.
very pro-Palestine Jewish person, and that might surprise people, but that's something that might surprise people, not drive them to isolate me from my home institutions. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, are you understanding the distinction here?
Yeah.
Do you know how
I know where I stand on this. I'm sorry, it's more important than what the BBC, what's going on there is, the mass murder of thousands of children is probably something that we should have a little opinion on.
But the BBC as a whole needs to be impartial about it.
Why? It needs to be factual.
It needs to be impartial about a conflict, doesn't it? And it's hard.
Does it have to be? It wasn't impartial about Ukraine and Russia.
And you might say that
Why does it have to be?
Yeah, because this whole idea of neutrality, there are some issues where, sure, it's important to not take a side. I mean, number one, you should be factual. If there's factual information, regardless of what side it would theoretically help, you have to talk about that information. If you're in an election, yeah, you can't just take the side of like one particular party, for example. But you can't just not, report factual information because, oh, well, that's going to make the conservatives look bad or the liberals look bad, and we have to be impartial. Like, no, that's not what being freaking impartial means. And talking about war, for example, we don't apply that to all wars, right? We don't. If Russia invaded us, or Russia invaded Ukraine, right? We wouldn't be just presenting both sides, right? We didn't we don't just put up, for instance, the Russian propaganda as having equal weight as what the Ukrainians say. Or like if you were to go back to World War II, we're not just gonna frame it as if the German Nazi propaganda and their views about Jews or Poland, justifying invasion, we don't act like that is equally valid to what the victims say or to what the British the British case was, right? Sometimes you do take a side. You're not just going to be impartial.
Being partial about, I understand if it's partial about our government and things in this country and everything like that, but something that's going on that far away, why does it?
Because the Israeli position is that what is happening in Gaza, and by the way, I'm not here as an advocate of the Israeli government, but the Israeli position is that what is happening in Gaza is a response to the slaughter and capture of innocent Israelis on October the 7th. And
which was awful, which was truly awful.
And that full context needs to be there when discussing what's going on.
But that's not the full context, is it? Because the full context starts way before October the 7th, doesn't it?
It sounds like you think the BBC is in a complete mess on impartiality.
No, I don't think the BBC is in a mess. I think the BBC it's very difficult.
I think it's a mess.
I think the BBC generally does a really good job of it, but it's not always easy. I think facts are the most important thing. It's like that old thing, isn't it? If it's raining outside, you don't need someone's opinion to say it's not raining. What you want to see is actually what is the weather outside. So I understand why it's so difficult for the BBC, and it really is. And I feel for the people at the top because, the amount of lobbying that will be going on and from people with, that aren't very impartial. Must be immense.
Knowing what you know now, which is that the narrator of that documentary
is a child,
is a child whose father is a Hamas official, and that wasn't disclosed to the public, which amounts to a serious law in the view of the BBC. Would you still sign that letter?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know this. I haven't seen this documentary they're talking about. But like, I would. So I guess you have a documentary about presumably Gaza that had some narration from a child who I guess they hadn't established was the son of a Hamas official. First of all, I'm not sure what the tricky thing you have a lot of time with Gaza. And we talk about Hamas is, well, Hamas is the government. So when you say Hamas official, that can be like a freaking city councilor, right? I wish I knew the name right. What's documentary Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone? Yeah, so it's like a first person thing, I imagine. Yeah, freaking agriculture minister. Like, no, I don't consider that. Oh, it should be polled. Like, if you want to change the documentary and just add in, oh, he's the son of Abdullah al-Yazuri, or of Ayman al-Yazuri, who's the deputy agriculture minister in the Hamas government, then okay, then people will be aware of what they're watching. Like, that would be the only issue. Oh, wait. However, Middle East report on Thursday that Dr. al-Yazuri, the father, appears to be a technocrat with a scientific background who previously worked for the UAE government and studied at British universities. Yeah, so that's... What does that freaking change? Assuming the kids, narration fit their journalistic guidelines otherwise, then just add a disclaimer.
13-year-old child narrating. It's been written by the people who produced the show.
But the BBC failed to do sufficient due diligence.
I don't believe they. I think they just capitulated to lobbying that they get a lot of lobbying.
And audiences didn't know something quite fundamental about the child, which is that he was the son of a Hamas official. Isn't that a problem?
I don't think so, no.
And so you would put the program back on iPlayer now?
100%. I think you let people make their own minds up. We're adults. We're allowed to see things like that. I mean, it's incredibly moving. I know where I stand on this. I'm sorry. It's more important than.
I just saw a girl's post and it said, name your political party and something you don't agree with that your party is like stands for. And most of the people in
What's the grammatical term for words like he, she, or they?
I don't know. I don't do it. I think man is a man and girl is a girl. No, I don't know.
No.
I just don't do that.
You don't do that.
I'm traditional. Traditional man.
What kind of word is he, she? I don't, like, come on. What kind of person? Yeah, you hear they, and his head shut off. Like, those are words. They have a name. They're called pronouns. You just you use. Or let me see. Did he use a pronoun? Maybe he doesn't use. Maybe he doesn't.
No, just don't do that.
You don't do that.
No, he said I.
Traditional.
That's the pronoun. He's
Traditional man.
3 pronouns.
Boy and girl. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Nothing against them.
Yeah.
But like, if it's
Or
Adam and
pronouns.
Steve, then the whole world's not going to populate and going to die out.
Yeah.
You can't populate with that. A little bit, yeah, but not much, because it's going to die out if you carry on.
6 pronouns. There's it.
But that wasn't the question. What's the grammatical term for words?
Feels like a pronoun. Is it a pronoun? Yeah. 3rd person pronoun. Okay. Oh, yeah, it said man and girl, not man and woman.
What's the grammatical term for words like?
Yeah, saying man and girl instead of man and women is an instant red flag. Oh yeah, and he changed it into he went from pronouns to
If it's
homophobia.
Adam and Steve, then the whole world's not going to.
He's talking about pronouns. Okay, so by that he means gender identity, and he thinks, oh no, you can't say anything about pronouns without it actually being about gender identity, which is crazy. But then I guess these ideas all jumbled in his head, right? That pronouns, gender identity, and then Adam and Steve. Is your dad
Thinking about having
a
daughter. My mind went to some dark places, dude. I don't wanna come across like a woke asshole, but like, dude, women have it hard.
woke little bitch.
Thinking about having a daughter.
So the Conservative Party of Canada released their full costed platform today for the 2025 federal election, and despite leader Pierre Poilievre's campaign talk about fighting wokeism, the platform itself largely avoids any gender or sexuality or anti-DEI policies. But there's one concerning line regarding trans women.
Though I think, he's going to talk about how they have a bunch of anti-trans or one anti-trans thing in there where they talk about keeping biological men, ergo trans women. Is that the right word, ergo? I think so. But basically about, we got to keep trans women out of sports, which is a complete made-up non-issue. But I think I heard they added, because he was talking about how they didn't have any other anti-DEI or anti-woke policies. I think I heard they did. They added, they literally, I think I heard they changed the platform and added in some anti-DEI form DEI. Yeah, anti-woke pledge added to conservatives' English platform. So not in the French platform? Is there a lot? I always had the impression there was more of this stupid anti-woke sentiment in French Canada, because I remember seeing Legault, the premier in Quebec, talking about criticizing the leftist, Quebec Solidaire Party leader Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois by saying, he's too woke. Yeah, conservatives have updated their English language platform to include the party's promised crackdown on woke ideology. The pledge was included in the okay, so it was previously included in the French language version, but was absent from the English one, so they added it to the English one. So an anti-woke promise to, quote, put an end to the imposition of woke ideology in the federal public service and in the allocation of federal funds for university research. Yeah, so they're going to do, I guess, like the same thing that the Trump administration's doing, where they threaten to cut off funding to universities, right? That's what they're saying, right? Put an end in the allocation of federal funds for university research. Yeah. So they'll cut university funding if, unless the universities get rid of, socially progressive policies, diversity and inclusion programs, etc. Yeah, they did not originally have this in their platform. They just added in there, and they haven't, explained why it wasn't in there before. Like, it's not like it's been a secret of his campaign, right? He's always talking about the woke, the woke agenda. And as they mention here, he he's been asked to explain what he considers woke, and he wouldn't define it because it's a freaking made up term just to be about whatever he doesn't like, and largely things that support diversity and multiculturalism. Yeah, just Polyev continuing to be more like Trump.
So can we just talk about the PPC for a second? The People's Party of Canada, led by Maxime Bernier. Because every single election, they deliver us some type of entertainment. So while Bernier is on his mass blocking sprees of pretty much everybody, his candidates and supporters are always going rogue online. So since Elon Musk decided to change the blocking feature on X so that you can block people, but they can still read what you say, I was able to read this masterpiece. So Maxime Bernier is telling people, do not waste your vote. Pandering Pierre won't win. It's time to vote your values. But unfortunately, one of his supporters had missed the memo when she showed up to vote with a purple crayon.
I saw this. I don't think she's the only one, right? But where she uses a purple crayon to say, I reject the Uniparty, and then just writes in PPC. I don't really have anything to add. It's just, I find it hilarious, and I hope all the PPC voters or the far right would-be conservative voters, follow that lead.
So when you're born and you have a set of chromosomes,
so are you speaking about biological
sex, or
are you speaking about gender? Because one is scientific, one is a social construct. Because I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, they're one and the same, man.
No. That's not true. But moving on. Okay, so in the same vein, what about intersex individuals?
I don't even know what that means, man.
Yes, you've written an amendment about gender policy, and you don't know what what intersex people are, or that they exist. Like, it's not even like I've seen some conservative, I think Charlie Kirk in the States, so this is also in the States, makes this case that his answer to the whole intersex question, which is like the obvious, elephant in the room when you're talking about gender policy. Like, if you're saying sex is binary and everyone fits very neatly into these categories, well, what's your plan to deal with intersex people who have more ambiguous, I'm trying to think of a euphemism, but like, genitalia. Um, they're they're the living embodiment of how, yeah, there's, sex is not as binary as we think of it. I think Charlie Kirk's case there is, oh, well, that's, such a small portion of the population. I'd say importantly, it is the intersex population is smaller than the transgender population, right? So if the trans population is significant enough for you to, legislate them out of society, presumably the intersex population being larger than that, or about, about the same amount, would be would be reason to take that into consideration. But this guy, it sounds like he has literally never heard the word intersex as he's writing policy around people's gender expression.
Or not sure what intersex people are, if they exist or not, but you want to defund a program about something that you don't quite understand. I'm trying. That's why I'm seeking clarification. And again, you haven't yet answered my question about where do intersex people fall into that equation.
Yeah, those intersex individuals are still XX or XY, so you can't change
By
that.
definition, no. She's trying to save him.
So when you're born and you have a set of chromosomes,
so are you?
Love it.
Jeez, my 401k lost so much money.
Yeah, Donald Trump crashed the stock market with his trade war.
Oh, I don't follow politics. Why is this stuff so expensive all of a sudden?
Donald Trump put tariffs on everything.
Oh, I don't follow politics. Come on. Why is traffic so bad?
There's mass protests everywhere. The country is crumbling.
Oh, I don't follow politics. I didn't get my newspaper this morning, and I need my crossword puzzle for my...
Ma'am, the newspaper has been shut down by the government. There is no more newspaper.
Oh, I don't follow politics. Jeez, my lawn service is...
Well, good morning, everyone. As many of you know, I was the first openly autistic person elected to Pennsylvania's
Bread in French is pain. Pain. Turtle is tortue. Tortue. Oh, right. C'est tout pour aujourd'hui. Class dismissed. 2 heures plus tard. So, Candace, what did you learn in school today? Pain and torture. Excuse me? Bread in French is pain. Pain. Turtle is tortue. Tortue. Oh, right. C'est tout pour aujourd'hui. Class dismissed.
Wow. Oh, there we go.
Okay, I can't believe anyone supports this, and if you do, tell me exactly why in the comments, because
that's
now PP's
thrilling.
saying that if you live in a tent city, you're going to jail. You're a criminal. Not you're down and out, not you're having an addiction issue, not you're having a mental health issue, you're a criminal. So let me get this straight. As someone who's self-employed, if I get hurt at work and I can't work, I go to the hospital and try to get care. They say, well, this isn't a socialist country. You don't have health insurance, so they kick me out. I can't pay my rent now because I can't work. So I go to the welfare office. I say, hey, can you help me while I get back on my feet? My arm's broken. They say, what does this look like, a socialist country? So they say, get out. So then what do? I can't pay my rent. So my landlord says, well, I'm not a socialist. Get out. So now I'm living on the streets. My kids are taken from me from social services. I'm living in a tent. Now, maybe I could save up enough money to get a new apartment, but nope. I'm a fucking criminal. So now you're going to haul me off to jail. You're going to put me in jail, costing taxpayers money when they weren't paying for me to live in the fucking tent. And now I can't get a job when I get out because I have a criminal record. So I'm perpetually back in fucking jail. This is what you're voting for. Tell me in the comments exactly how you fucking support this. Okay, I can't believe anyone supports this. And if you do, tell me exactly why in the comments. Because now PP's saying that if you live in a tent city, you're going to jail. You're a criminal. Not you're down and out. Not you're having an addiction issue. Not you're having a mental health issue. You're a criminal. So let me get this straight. As someone who's self-employed, if I get hurt at work and I can't work, I go to the hospital and try to get care. They say, well, this isn't a socialist country. You don't have health insurance. So they kick me out. I can't pay my rent now because I can't work. So I go to the welfare office. I say, hey, can you help me while I get back on my feet? My arm's broken. They say, what does this look like, a socialist country? So they say, get out. So then what do? I can't pay my rent. So my landlord says, well, I'm not a socialist. Get out. So now I'm living on the streets. My kids are taken from me from social services. I'm living in a tent. Now, maybe I could save up enough money to get a new apartment, but nope. I'm a fucking criminal. So now you're going to haul me off to jail. You're going to put me in jail, costing taxpayers money when they weren't paying for me to live in the fucking tent. And now I can't get a job when I get out because I have a criminal record. So I'm perpetually back in fucking jail. This is what you're voting for. Tell me in the comments exactly how you fucking support this. Okay, I can't believe anyone supports this. And if you do, tell me exactly why in the comments. Because now PP's saying that if you live in a tent city, you're going to jail. You're a criminal. Not you're down and out. Not you're having an addiction issue. Not you're having a mental health issue. You're a criminal. So let me get this straight. As someone who's self-employed, if I get hurt at work and I can't work, I go to the hospital and try to get care. They say, well, this isn't a socialist country. You don't have health insurance. So they kick me out. I can't pay my rent now because I can't work. So I go to the welfare office. I say, hey, can you help me while I get back on my feet? My arm's broken. They say, what does this look like, a socialist country? So they say, get out. So then what do? I can't pay my rent. So my landlord says, well, I'm not a socialist. Get out. So now I'm living.
Whether you trust it or not, this will help to end your cleaning.
I'm going to give you an example because you asked me about what I've done, and I think that's an important question. When you're a liberal backbencher, you do not have the opportunity to fully represent your city, and I'm going to tell you why. I won't name names, but there's a local backbencher who I've worked with in proximity who rose in the House of Commons 88 times during debates. As a New Democrat, I rose in the House of Commons 349 times to represent Hamilton. I am extremely, extremely active at committees. I know most Canadians don't have the privilege of seeing that, but my record is on the public record. As a labor critic, I've stood on the front lines, picket lines, strike lines with steel workers, postal workers, public sector workers, private sector workers. I'm fighting for a response to the tariffs that centers and gives.
Yeah, but you're not like, I mean, it's not unfair what he's saying. Like, I think, yeah, when you are like a lower part of the government, like you have less influence, but like Matthew Green isn't a backbencher, right? He's not like a random NDP MP. He's part of the shadow cabinet. He's the crit. What is he the critic for? Matthew Green shadow cabinet. Right? He's in. Right? Am I wrong? Yeah. Here's the list of the shadow cabinet. So like where these are if you're not familiar, they're effectively the opposition party counterpart to like government ministers, right? So there's a government so there will be like a liberal minister of health, and then there will be a conservative and NDP critic for health. Yes, I feel like. Oh, Nikki's still in critic. I felt like she'd kind of faded more into the background in the past few years. Is Matthew Green not? I thought for sure Matthew Green was in. Yeah, he is. Yeah. So he's critic for ethics, Treasury Board, employment, development. So he's the critic for ethics, Treasury Board, employment, and public services. Deputy critic for development, labor, and public services. Okay. Yeah, obviously I'm sure the minister, is able to speak much more, but they're not necessarily speaking for there to fight for their own local constituents so much as the country as a whole. I think if your priority is who can serve me best locally, like as a representative for for my town or whatever, in theory, the Greens would be ideal for that because the Greens don't even have a party whip, and that's not just because they don't have that many MPs right now, right? That's very much like a philosophical thing they have, right? For most parties, you are forced to vote this way or that way, or you'll face real repercussions. Greens are a lot more free to just vote in whatever way is best for their constituents. And you do sometimes see, oftentimes see Green MPs breaking with the party line to support their local constituents.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing this right now. Again,
Not every Jewish person is a Zionist. I can't believe we're talking about this in 2025.
Thank you.
Recently, there was a post that went viral talking about how the creators of Bob's Burgers and BoJack Horseman are both major Zionists, and that's just
Really?
not true. This was pretty quickly
Okay, good.
responded to
Because
when someone pointed out that
I had heard that about BoJack Horseman. That was disappointing. But yeah, so sometimes I'm not sure because I feel like there are some people that I don't know jump. I feel like I've run into a couple times where people had claimed, "Oh, this person's a Zionist." You look into it and like, not exactly.
creator of BoJack Horseman has pointed out to say, please stop killing Palestinians back in 2021. And I want to make this abundantly clear before I go moving forward. I think Zionism is evil. It should be eradicated. The state of Israel should not exist, and there should be a free Palestine. And there is a genocide going on right now. But we need to take a second and take a breath and just stop. We should be critiquing every single aspect of Zionism. We should critique every single Zionist that we come across, but we can't be just throwing around that label just because we're trying to be more morally pure than someone else, because we're trying to win some kind of stand war, or we're trying to become right and someone else being wrong. No, I'm not going to research this further. Not everyone posts their ideas and beliefs on social media. I think it's ridiculous to think so, and to do all this scaring that people do all the time, well, it just feels
Thank you for all that you're doing. I was just reading about the city expansion.
And the boundaries.
And even that, I'm like, I think we should densify.
Here's something that might be interesting for you to know.
Yeah.
When I was on city council and they did the urban boundary review,
yes,
I voted against.
So in Australia, we've got people who are up in arms about this thing that we have called Welcome to Country, where it's just giving acknowledgement to the traditional owners of the land.
It's land acknowledgement.
Just acknowledging the Aboriginal ancestors, past, present, and emerging. And they decided to kick off on Anzac Day. Like people getting pissed off about the Welcome to Country. My take and my views on all of this as an Australian that has been accepted into the Aboriginal mob by multiple different elders and communities, like different mobs and all of that. Personally, in 2025, I think that people need to get over it. Imagine letting something like acknowledging the traditional owners or whatever get your panties in a bunch so badly. Like, me personally, I think that this passion and fury should be going towards the hospitals where people are dying in waiting rooms. This anger and passion should be going towards Coles and Safeway, extortionate.
Didn't Australia just like in the past few years, like didn't they have like this big referendum on whether to like support Indigenous rights that they voted down?
Ripping people off and Australian citizens going fucking hungry or deciding what's more important, nutrition and food or paying rent, because rent keeps going up exponentially for people. I think we need to put this passion and fury into the youth crime that is absolutely taking over and
Oh, the full discussion. Yes. I mean, on the
music producers, sample yourself.
This is my undisputed Mount Rushmore of the finest women from Gen Z childhood.
The recent Ontario election is a clear example how Canada is not a democracy anymore, if it ever was. See, the first past the post system delivers 100% power to parties that win maybe 40% of the vote,
or like
meaning
32.
that in all of the elections, over half of the voters are being silenced, and their votes are not being seen in the electorate. It's not actually showing up. This is especially obvious when you have a very corrupt.
I'm talking to liberals and conservatives. I'm like, hey, does local representation matter for you?
This guy I feel like a note I have to make, because I mean, there is no chance that Jagmeet Singh is not going to be the leader of the leader of the NDP in the next election, right? Maybe he survives like another year or whatever, like until they're able to hold a leadership convention. Maybe if he like really tries to hold on to it, right? I think there's a pretty decent chance he resigns on election night, right? Like there's been some polling or seat projections kind of iffy sometimes, but that suggests that there's a strong chance he might not win his own seat in Burnaby. So like definitely we're going to be having an NDP leadership race sometime in the next year or two. And I feel like Matthew Green has to be like one of the top contenders, right? He's a really good and effective politician. He's, I think, one of the best like communicators and speakers. He has, I think, throughout this whole election, like at least every week of this election, he has been doing these big like live streams on Facebook, and I feel like he's really good at not just being a good communicator, but sounding like an actual person, right? There's so many, particularly Canadian politicians, that are just feel like robots. They have no personality. Like you watch Jagmeet, he's just seems so artificial and manufactured. And it's like, this is not a real person. I know this is not how you anywhere close to how you would talk to a real person. I think with that interview with Nardwuar, the music guy, that was like the closest I think we really got to this, this late in the game, where I felt like I really had a sense, I had a little bit of a taste of, that's what Jagmeet's actually like, right? When he's not, pushing this phony version of himself so much.
And they say yes. And I concede that my politics are strong and that I hold strong opinions about issues that matter to me. I do not expect everybody to agree with all of it. I don't pitch myself as the perfect candidate, but I'm definitely the local candidate, and you can trust that when I go to Ottawa, it is going to be to represent Hamilton Centre.
They said that if I got the security clearance briefings, that I would be gay under the security law, and I could be They said that if I got the security clearance briefings.
In a month, everyone will use ChatGPT.
How is race objective something you're born with and stays that way forever, and it's culturally appropriating to do or say otherwise, yet gender is just a vibe now? If a white person can't be black, then how can a man be a woman? I'd love to see the Democratic Party come onto this page and do mental gymnastics to answer this question. I don't think one of them is going to be able to, but let's see you guys try.
I will answer this question with glee, however. You are not allowed to watch this video if you cannot respect my qualifications and you're gonna believe some random white girl on the internet. And if you are incapable of waiting until the end of the video before sharing your thoughts and feelings, if you're incapable of reflecting, scroll from now. You're not allowed to watch. Go, leave. Qualifications are as follows. I am a black woman, so race and gender affect me at the same time. I am also genderqueer. Oh, y'all are already triggered. If you're triggered, leave. I also have a university background in biology, physiology, and sociology. I also wrote and published a book about exploring gender and sexuality beyond their binaries. So those are my qualifications. Let us begin. Race and gender are social constructs. However, they are constructed differently. To understand the difference, we have to understand the historical context of these terms, how they came about.
Yes, he lost all his credibility on this topic.
It's like we're watching Auschwitz on TikTok. Had there been YouTube on Auschwitz, this is what we would have seen. People burning alive.
I'm a child survivor of the Holocaust. I protest against the use of the memory of the Holocaust as a justification for perpetrating the same in Gaza.
That the Nazi Holocaust has now become the main ideological weapon
So I think she's just sharing an old video, but this says Holocaust survivor Norman. I don't believe Norman Finkelstein is a Holocaust survivor. I think he's the child of Holocaust survivors. Let's just double check that. Yeah, no, yeah, he was born in Brooklyn. He's not a Holocaust survivor. He's the child of Holocaust survivors.
Launching wars of aggression.
Kimmerling was a senior sociologist at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. He was highly respected. He described Gaza as, quote, the largest concentration camp ever in the world. He wrote that 2003.
Former head of the Israel National Security Council, again referring to the Palestinians in Gaza as Nazis, comparing the situation to Nazi Germany.
Germany did the Holocaust. Germany annexed Austria and did the Holocaust. So put Israel in Austria, call it Israel, make the Danube be the boundary. Instead, the world thought, let's do this to Palestine, which is ironic because the Palestinians had nothing to do with the Holocaust in any way, shape, or form.
As a Jewish person, that is what my Jewish history, the thousands of years of the suffering of the Jewish people, that is what it teaches me. Germany and Austria, because...
Yeah, I think I like the yellow better.
I knew.
I guarantee you had no idea that in the 1990s, the Olympics had to stop testing whether people were male or female by checking their DNA because dudes born with dicks were finding out their DNA was actually biologically female, and then they were getting traumatized because they're like, what do you mean? I'm a man! Well, babe, do you think someone's a male according to hormones, chromosomes, or physical characteristics? Because all three can be different. High heels and makeup used to just be for males, and then society decided it was going to be for females. Depending on where you live in the world, it's different everywhere because gender is not determined by biology. It's determined by society. Your sex is determined by biology, and those are two different things because they look differently depending on the time and society. Another thing I bet you didn't know, what was the first thing the Germans did during the Holocaust? Who did they kill first? The Jews? No, the transgenders. They got rid of all of their research and they burnt it to the ground. When I was a little kid, anytime I saw someone who I couldn't tell if they were a dude or a chick, I'd ask my mom, I'd be like, what the fuck is that? Why don't I know what they are? And then I learned I'm not supposed to imagine what's in other people's pants because that's fucking gross and their business. You know what I mean? And then I went, oh, society just wants me to think you have to be this way and you have to be this way, and I get uncomfortable and confused if I can't tell this difference. But in actuality, you don't need to be anyway, so it doesn't matter, and I don't need...
Every Canadian election, I approach all the different party leaders and ask if they will do an interview / hip flip. Mark Carney did a hip flip.
The best like humanizing.
Jagmeet Singh did a hip flip. Elizabeth May did a hip flip.
Who you got now?
But I'm still waiting to hear back if Pierre Poilievre will do an interview with me. I'll keep trying. I won't give up because that's what I do every election.
No, he's not going to do like I almost think he should, like in terms of like his own selfish political reasons, because a Nardwuar interview, it's great. It's one of the he does like the best humanizing interviews I can think of. Like I think I mentioned it a minute ago. Like Jagmeet Singh's interview, and it was like the first time in how long has he been in it? Right since like 2017 or 2018 for a while. He's been in for a while, and that was the first time I felt like I had a sense of who Jagmeet kind of really is as a person instead of this manufactured, version of himself that he puts out to the world. And so Pierre, if he's trying to connect with people, really he should do an Nardwuar interview. But I think once you peel back the layers and you see the real Poilievre, I don't think there's going to be that much. Like I think he'll come off as much more awkward, right? Because his Pierre Poilievre's, manufactured version of himself, I think, has even less in common with like the real guy. Because at his heart, I think he's, a very, very socially awkward, weird. I think he's probably autistic or neurodivergent personally. He would not fit this whole weird, like tough guy sort of masculine thing he's going for.
you want to increase your restaurant or
Holy shit.
Lena, what were you told today?
Girls can't play
Oh.
football.
Hi, my sweet girl. You know what you can play? Rugby. We tackle, we run, we stiff arm. Dare I?
Hey, good game out there, bud. Wish I could say the same.
Welcome to the Talking Baby podcast.
We need to talk about autism.
How many words is this?
Hello, Stephen. This is Clem Fandango. Can you hear me?
How many words, Clem Fandango?
About 100,000 words.
Whew, that's a lot of bullshit. How many words is this?
Hello, Stephen. This is Clem Fandango. Can you hear?
If you're not a Zionist, then what do you say at the end of your Passover Seder? It's next year in Jerusalem, not next year in the Bronx. Is a very tired line that I get in my comment section about this time of year. The fact of the matter is, it is said that there are 70 faces of Torah, as in endless interpretations and understandings of the material found therein. It would be quite foolish then to pretend that there is only one face of a Haggadah. Similarly, to pretend that there is only one meaning of the phrase next year in Jerusalem, which predates the founding of the modern nation-state of Israel, by the way, is quite ignorant and unimaginative. Never mind the fact that there's a rich history of this line being modified to say different things. From this Haggadah published in 1919 by the Jewish Social Democrat Party, which blesses socialism and calls for a socialist revolution, to If Not Now's Freedom for All Haggadah, saying next year in freedom. Anyone actually interested in the answer to this question could have simply browsed the plethora of progressive, non-Zionist resources put out by various Jewish activist groups, but instead they're acting a bit obtuse in my comment section. However, to the surprise of perhaps many Zionists, I actually intend to keep the phrasing of next year in Jerusalem unchanged. Why? Because Jerusalem is a holy place, one that is sacred to us as Jews. However, Jerusalem is often misunderstood to be referring to one singular, literal location. In my eyes, and at my table, that is not the case. Jerusalem is a concept, a city sheltered by God's peace. There are 36 times in the Torah where we are called to have empathy for the stranger, those that are not us, and to ensure that everyone is cared for in our communities. Exodus 23:9 states, "You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the feelings of the stranger, having yourselves been strangers in the land of Egypt."
In times like these, we need a strong leader, someone who'll fight for the people struggling to buy their fifth investment property, for the foreign-owned companies that pay fuck all taxes, and for Gina's dream of turning Australia into America Light. Project Gina. And that man is Peter Dutton. You might remember Pete from such hits as "Let's joke about climate change 'cause I'm a cunt," "Let's walk out on the apology to stolen generations 'cause I'm a cunt," "Let's keep kids in concentration camps 'cause I'm a cunt," "Let's stoke racism against Palestinians, Lebanese refugees and Africans 'cause I'm a cunt," and of course, "Let's deport this family whilst giving visas to our mates au pairs 'cause I'm a cunt." But Australia's about to have an election, and for Pete to protect us from woke wind farms, he must...
That's like the week, or like that. That's like days after our election. Maybe a week after our election. So Australia is also in the middle of an election right now. And this guy sounds like a freaking like Trump. It sounds worse than Polyev. Is he like front? Is he like a front runner?
Must first hold on to his seat. Dixon, when he remembers it exists, which is at election time, not when a cyclone's approaching. Then he'll be in Sydney for a 25 grand a head fundraiser, for which he'll charge taxpayers. Okay, so he bailed on you at a bad time, Dixon, but remember what Pete said. Time doesn't mean anything when you're about to have water lapping at your door, which might explain why it's taking 15 years to build this fucking bridge in his own electorate. But you can totes believe Pete when he says he'll build a nuclear power plant in 12 years. But Pete's got no time for Dixon's petty problems. He's busy in Canberra, mainly scaring children. But he's no monster. He's a man of the people, specifically people who own multiple investment properties. And if you're wondering how your kids will ever afford a home, don't worry. Harry will be just fine. Pete stands by his principles, which is why he ditched his shitty Doge policies as soon as they became inconvenient, and now assures you he's not a MAGA guy. It's just a coincidence he appointed a MAGA hat-wearing, MAGA slogan-touting MP as his Minister for Efficiency, and that his Minister for Screeching said he'd have the exact same attitude as Trump, which has led many to wonder, do we really know who Peter Dutton is?
If you don't know, vote no.
When you put all this together, you might be thinking of voting for another major party, like the one that approved 10 new coal mines in a climate crisis. Or maybe for this community independent who'd represent Dixon for once, rather than Santos and Gina. Either way, Dixon, if enough of you put Peter last, he might lose his seat in Parliament at this election, which would force the shit party to replace him as leader with one of these Burks, which should finish it off for good. And that would be fucking hilarious. So don't do it, Dixon. Peter Dutton.
Your car is personal property. Your land.
You were never a woman. You don't get to put on a dress and call yourself a woman. Okay? There are 2 points to this video.
So you're telling me within 24 hours of
Justin Trudeau to implement.
You know, it's... I said earlier, but I'm going to say it again. I know you want to be running against Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau isn't here.
You can't tell us what the deficit is for this year.
In love with the sound of his own voice and...
Hey there, neighbor. Welcome back to my series, What Are Their Political Affiliations? Where I dive into the possible political leanings of public figures in pop culture. This is part 2 of the Love.
You know what I find most annoying when I hear about students using AI to write their essays or whatever, is that it's taking jobs away from good, hardworking nerds. Back in my day, when a jock or a lazy rich kid wanted to get their grades up but were too stupid to read a book, they would just go to the valedictorian or whoever and give them $20 to $50 to write their essays for them. And these were bespoke essays, artisanal essays. If you had a good nerd like me, they would even dumb it down a little so it wasn't too obvious you were cheating.